So here's an example. We just looked at, in the previous video, looked at how to solve an equation in the form p times q equals 0, where p is just a variable and q is a variable. Well, that's what we have here. Here, this x plus 3 is a variable in its own right, because x is a variable. So whatever the variable, what this means is x is a variable, and whatever value this variable takes, just add 3 to it. So the whole thing is a variable. So that's p, and you can think of this as also a variable. So we can take that as q. So we have an equation in the form p times q equals 0. Well, I just told you the two solutions are as follows. When p is 0, regardless of what value q takes, you get a solution. So that's the first one. And the second one is when q is 0, regardless of what. So what I'll do is p is 0 and q is any real number value. So any real, I'll say real number. And q is 0 and p is any real number. Which means that the first solution is obtained by saying p equals 0. What's p? P is x plus 3. X plus 3 equals 0 gives x is equal to minus 3. And then for our second solution, q equals 0, which means x minus 5 is equal to 0. And that means that x is equal to 5. So we have our two solutions to this equation. The first one is x1, so I'll call this x1 and this is x2. x1 is minus 3 and x2 is equal to 5. It's always a good idea to test the solution, so let's test the first solution. x1 equals minus 3, or x equals minus 3. I'm just putting the 1 subscript just to show that this is the first solution. When x is minus 3 in the equation, so I'm going to replace x with minus 3 in the equation, what you get is the following. Minus 3 plus 3 times minus 3 minus 5. That's the left hand side. Let's focus on the left hand side. So the left hand side then becomes minus 3 plus 3, that's 0, times minus 3 minus 5 minus 8. What's 0 times minus 8? That's 0. That's the left hand side. The right hand side of the equation is 0, which means that when x is minus 3, the left hand side of the equation is equal to the right hand side. That means the equation is satisfied, which means that x equals minus 3 is a solution to the equation. You try replacing x with 5 in the equation and you'll find that the left hand side will be equal to the right hand side. And then I'll show you the case where I try some random number that's not a solution to the equation. So I'll try x equals 2 just to show you. When x is equal to 2, the left hand side of the equation is given by 2 plus 3. So I'm replacing x with 2 in the original equation. 2 plus 3 times 2 minus 5. The left hand side is equal to 2 plus 3, which is 5, times 2 minus 5, which is minus 3. 5 times minus 3 is equal to minus 15. What's the right hand side? 0. So the left hand side and right hand side don't match when x is 2. That means x is equal to 2 is not a solution. We know the solutions, x equals 5 and x equals minus 3. So I just want you to test the validity of this solution, and that just means checking that the left hand side and right hand side of the equation match when x is 5. So here's another example. We need to solve this equation. It's also of the form p times q because this first variable term we can call p and this second term can be called q. So this is an equation in the form p times q equals 0. So I'll just put that here. P times q equals 0. So the solutions to this equation is just given by two cases, when p is 0 and q is 0. The first case, when p is 0, means when x plus 6 is equal to 0, which means that x is equal to minus 6. So one solution is x1 is minus 6. Second case, q equals 0. X plus 8 is equal to 0, which means x is equal to minus 8. So that's a 0. That's a 0. X is equal to minus 8. So the second solution is, and it's as easy as this. So test this at home. Replace x with minus 6 in this equation and check if the left hand side and right hand side match. Replace x with minus 8 and also check the left hand side and right hand side match. And replace x, just for the fun of it, with 10. And you'll find that the right hand side and left hand side of the equation will not match because x equals 10 is not a solution. The only thing I want to mention now is that some of you might not be clear on why x plus 6, for instance, this term is a variable. Well, you agree that x is a variable, meaning that x can take different values. So x can be 1, x can be 2, x can be 4. But because x can change in value, so can x plus 6, because as x changes, so does the whole term x plus 6. When x is 1, what is x plus 6? 7. When x is 2, what is x plus 6? 8. When x is 4, x plus 6 is 10. So as you can see, x plus 6 can take different values. So in its own right, x plus 6 is a variable, which is why I said let x plus 6 be p. P and q here represent variables, and this is an equation involving the product of two variables being equal to 0. So there you go.